Hello everyone and welcome back to World Warplanes. And yes, it has been absolutely forever, but you can thank college for that. But we're on summer break. Yes, I'll get a job soon, but whatever. For now, I'm able to make some new videos. And then also beyond that, you guys all know that I did take a break from World Warplanes for about 6 months. So it's been about, well, I started coming back to World Warplanes about 2 months ago. So yeah, it's not like I'm just returning, but I didn't have time to make videos or the opportunity to make videos until now. So here I am. And, well, today we're going to be taking a look at the Tupolev Tu-1, Tier 7 Soviet Premium Heavy Fighter. It's actually the first heavy fighter in the Soviet tech tree, and if this is a sign to what we can expect from a potential Soviet heavy branch, we may be in for quite a ride. So, without further ado, let us first talk about the history of the plane, and then we'll get into the stats and get into some crazy, crazy battle replays. Um, actually, can I even find the history on this plane? Let's see. No, okay. Alright, well, I did do some research beforehand, so I can still tell you the history of this plane. According to the different sources that I went to, this was actually a Soviet response to the British Mosquito during World War II. They were thoroughly impressed with the Mosquito, and so it's their version of the Mosquito, their answer to the Mosquito, their representation of it. It was essentially a night fighter variant of the Tupolev Tu-2 bomber that was in service. So that's kind of cool. It was just kind of an adaptation of it. And it first flew in March 22nd of 1947. But the tests ended somewhere between October 3rd and November 3rd, 1947. Sources do vary a little bit between that, but so it wasn't in testing for very long. It was officially scrapped and not selected for production at that time in favor of other projects. So actually, this plane actually did not fly during World War II, which is kind of interesting. It was actually designed after World War II. One thing that is a little bit unique about this plane compared to the in-game version is this actually, because it still retained the bomb undercarriage, the bomb bay undercarriage, it could still hold up to 1,000 pounds of bombs. But as you will see, uh, this this version that we have in game does not carry bombs. But theoretically, this version could. And as we'll be seeing later on, the maneuverability on this plane really isn't anything to write home about. So putting bombs on it probably wouldn't be too bad of an idea on this plane because its maneuverability already sucks. So why not just make it a little bit worse and add bombs? So yeah, that's really the history of the plane. Not anything too interesting, but yeah, well, whatever. Now, I would like to start talking about the stats. This plane comes with two 45s and two 23s. So this is actually pretty similar to what you would find on the Soviet multi-role line um, in the Yak 9U. If we pop up the Yak 9U, let's go find that real quick. Yak 9U. So the Yak 9U gets a single 45 and two 20s. So it isn't quite the same, but if we put them over top of each other, we can kind of compare for a second. The 45 on the Yak 9U is technically better, but the Tu-1 gets two of them. But the Tu-1 also gets better 23s, so it is a more superior, or the Tu-1's guns are superior to the Yak 9U's guns. But for all intents and purposes, they're very similar to the Yak 9U's guns. So if you have flown the Yak 9U, you will be fairly familiar with the play style or the range that you would have to get accustomed to with the guns. Uh, and next, I have actually made some charts because I've been watching VBAT recently and I like his charts. Um, doing some doing some comparisons between planes in a visual format. Very simple ways to view stats and comparisons just makes it a lot easier to really quantify what this plane is capable compared to the other heavy fighters in the tier. So, if we pull up the chart that I've made, it's just a very simple chart from Excel. And let's see. So the chart, essentially, I broke it up into 5 different categories that I thought were pretty interesting. Um, no shame, I copied most of what VBAT had done because I liked it. So we're doing that. Uh, he had maneuverability, airspeed, firepower, and altitude performance. Those definitely are very important key elements of a plane. So I took those and I also added one, which was the survivability, because, well, I think it is a pretty integral part of planes. So I did that. Then, next of all, I just did a simple scatter plot with the different categories on the x-axis with uh, the ratings from 1 to 100 on the y-axis. So, if we take a look, the Tu-1 is going to be this blue bar on the far left, which makes it very simple to compare to the other planes because you have a visual representation. So, if we start off with maneuverability, the Tu-1 is actually the least maneuverable plane at the tier. So, yes, you will not be winning any turn fights with literally anything except for bombers and GAs, and sometimes not even GAs, because the IL-10 could probably give you a run for your money. That being said, as long as you're not explicitly trying to turn fight with planes, you could still technically do maneuvering fights. Just don't maneuver with single targets, but if you're in a cluster of planes, you can still turn. I mean, that's kind of like a misconception. So just because you have bad maneuverability does not mean you're necessarily a boom and zoom aircraft. And in this case, I really don't think this is designed to be boom and zoom, and we'll see that later on. But yeah, alright, well, let's move on. And the next category is going to be airspeed. Now, airspeed, most of the heavy fighters are pretty comparable to each other. However, the Tu-1 is near the lower end of the spectrum. So again, you're definitely not really designed to be a boom and zoom aircraft. You'll have fighters that can keep up with you if you're not careful, and it's just not really that great. So yes, you're not maneuverable, and no, you don't have the greatest airspeed. But firepower, it's actually the second best in this comparison, only behind the KI-94-1, which has, what was it, 230s and 237s, I think? So yes, that plane has a lot of firepower too, but you get 245s and 223s. So honestly, the two in comparison are essentially the same in firepower. There is a marginal difference, but it's got the firepower similar to that plane, I'd say. The next is altitude performance. And altitude performance, while it's not terrible, you're definitely not going to be able to compete with planes like the 109Z or the KI-93, which honestly I didn't realize the KI-93 had that great of altitude performance, but apparently it does. So yeah, there you go. Um, so yeah, that's nothing too crazy. The altitude performance, because your airspeed isn't super great, you do get 45 seconds of boost, which is nice. Like, that's a bomber level of boost, but it's not a very powerful boost. It's kind of like a multi-roll type of boost. It doesn't feel like when you activate that boost, you don't feel like you're just gonna be bulleting through the sky. You're just kind of slogging through the sky, kind of, and it kind of sucks, really. So altitude performance, it's not the worst. It's definitely better than certain planes, but it's certainly not the best either. But you do have that 45 seconds of boost, and while it's not perfect, you if you do have a lot of it, you can get it to go up and deal with bombers. But if you don't have boost, it can be very difficult to get up and deal with bombers. And because the boost is so subpar, you'll be having to use a lot of boost to gain substantial amounts of altitude. So if you really want to make this altitude work, I'd suggest as soon as spawning, you gain about 3,000 feet, 4,000 feet. It gives you that little bit of potential, gravitational potential energy that could be potentially useful and can be converted to kinetic energy on planes below you and gives you the jump on your opponents. Now, while that is true, you're not generally going to be very high in this plane. This is going to be a fairly low altitude performance plane. It's going to be a more mid-range, I guess. You can deal with bombers, you can deal with GA, but it's just kind of meh. And the last category is survivability, and the Tu-1 actually is far superior than any of the other heavy fighters at this tier, rather, at a rather impressive 22 base survivability. So, while not competing with the survivability of bombers or GAs by any means, you will be able to take quite a punishment before going down. And you're going to need those hit points because you are a massive target. Your plane is rather large and is very easy to shoot down. So those are the main stats that we have to think about. And with those stats, we can kind of see that this plane doesn't have the best boost, doesn't have the best airspeed, doesn't have the best altitude performance. It's not terrible, but it's not great. Maneuverability sucks, so yeah, but you can take a hit, and you've got these massive cannons. I guess this plane is really a one-trick pony. But one other thing that we did not mention, you do not get ordnance in this plane. However, you do get tail gunners. You get 150 cal sitting in the back right here, and you also get a 50 cal for the undercarriage right there. So you're not totally defenseless if you do get planes on you, unlike something like the F7F of Tiger Cat, where that plane isn't very maneuverable, doesn't have the best airspeed, and so if you get planes on you, you're kind of dead. At least in this plane, you'll have some sort of defense. While they won't kill your opponents quickly, they will whittle them away eventually. And then that's really about it for stat-wise. Not really anything more to talk about on it, really. I guess I could talk about how I got this plane, in case you guys watch this later on. This plane essentially was just a random operation that we were given in between the Red Comet event and the German bomber event. Whatever that is. The Soviet and German bomber events, kind of in between, give us something to do in between. So I completed the operation orders, got this specialized, and then we had this rating tree for a special piece of equipment for the plane that gave us, what is this? An advanced Tu-1 radar, really just a Tu radar, which was a special piece of equipment specifically designed for the Tu-1. I was number 12, so not too bad. Period 3, I was number 22. Honestly, I kind of gave up at the end. I was like, I don't care anymore. I could have gotten it up there a little bit further, but I was like, nah, I'm done. I can always upgrade it if I need to. But anyway, yeah, I got that. Paint shop, it came with a nice little paint scheme, nose, and emblem that gave me additional crew experience and additional raw experience. So that's kind of cool. 5% for each, not too shabby. Now, while I'm not, this is really the first review I've done since specialization. I'm not gonna like go out of my way to specialize planes that I'm gonna review, but in this case, because there was an event, I got this plane specialized, so you're gonna be able to see the full potential of this plane and my loadout with a specialist configuration. Consumable wise, it's pretty standard. Med kit, control surface, pneumatic restarter, and universal ammunition for both the front guns and the tail gunner. For equipment, I'll do this one last. We get a turret equipment, forward firing weapons, engine, and cockpit pieces of equipment. The rear turret, I think generally this is probably your best bet, going for the turret gun sight, which essentially increases the range of your tail gunner. In most cases, this is actually very, very beneficial and the one you want to go for. Alternatively, we could do these ones, but really, turret gun sight's the best. I went for the rate of fire gas operated action because, yes, your guns aren't going to fire quickly, but I am obsessed with rate of fire. Um, and honestly, here's my reasoning. Here's my reasoning. Because I know that this is going to be fairly controversial. So I could either go for gas operated action, reinforced bolt carriers, or long gun barrels. My guess is that people would either go for the long gun barrels, probably more so than the reinforced bolt carriers, but I think gas operated action might be the least likely candidate for the Tu-1. And why is that? Well, your 45s can hit at like, what is it, 3,500 feet, something stupid like that. So people are like, well, let's amplify the benefits or the unique features of the plane. What is the optimal distance? Okay, yeah, 4,000 or sorry, 3,444 feet. Yeah, that's pretty substantial. But here's the thing. That is really substantial already, and you're generally not gonna hit targets at that range because there's such a small target. There's too much variable between where they're going to be and where they are. And so increasing the range any further, while would be ridiculous for range, you could probably get it somewhere about 3,700 or more. It's not really that useful because you're not going to be hitting stuff at that range most of the time anyway, just because they're so far away, and any movement that they do makes it nearly impossible to hit them already. Increasing the range anymore, you're just never going to hit. It's not going to be worth it. So that kind of takes away the rate of or the range of fire option. And the burst length, yes, the 45s do overheat quickly. However, they fire so slowly that you're not really supposed to be holding down the trigger button because you'll just make them overheat too fast. Instead, you click, you fire, you release the button, let them reload, and then fire again. Doing this will cause your guns to overheat far slower, and therefore I don't generally have an issue with them overheating. So, that just leaves the gas operated action, which increases the rate of fire. And in my opinion, that's really beneficial. And even if you don't think it's very beneficial for the 45s, it is beneficial for the 23s, regardless of your position. And those 23s can come in very, very handy at close range. The 45s are good for long range. So those 23s are good in those knife fights, those close-up engagements. And so even if you don't think the 45s are necessary for it, I personally believe they are because it allows you to get those 45s to fire more frequently. Again, this for the most part comes down to personal preference, but that is my reasoning for going with the ultimate gas operated action. Is it right? No, not necessarily, because everyone has their own play styles and their own opinions, but that is my reasoning for it. Let's move on to the next one though. I opted for the lightweight power unit, and as we saw in the comparison, this is the least maneuverable heavy fighter at tier 7. So, what causes me to do the lightweight power unit? Well, obviously, you're not going to get as much use out of it as, let's say, a more maneuverable heavy fighter, like maybe the KI-93, I suppose. However, it allows you to get your guns on target easier than if you don't go for it. So, what do I mean by that? Well, sometimes because this plane is so immaneuverable, if you don't have something to increase your maneuverability, it can be a little bit tricky to get your guns where you want them, when you want them. And if you can't get your guns to be on target, well, you're not going to be doing any damage at all. So, yes, you're not going to be doing it so that you're able to win turn fights. Heck no. You're already the least maneuverable. Putting this on isn't going to change anything. Not substantially. But it will allow you to get your guns on target easier and will make your time to turn 360 degrees less, which is always good. And so that is why I went for it. Engine's resistance to damage, don't really go for that ever unless you really have an issue with it, but it just feels more like a waste to me. Boost efficiency, you could because you do have 45 seconds of it, so that wouldn't be a terrible option. I didn't go for it, but that one would be pretty acceptable. And then you could also go with, that's the one I went with, and then engine thrust, you could go with it, but if anything, if you weren't going to go with the lightweight power unit, I would probably go with the combined injection boost system. That seems like the most beneficial because you do have 45 seconds of boost, so that could be quite beneficial. And finally, we get to the cockpit. Initially, I went for the sight. As you see, I have an ultimate calorimeter sight. It was fully calibrated. This is the one that I used, which gave me 21% accuracy of forward-firing offensive armament. That is insanity. I had a 15% chance of inflicting critical damage, 5% accuracy when firing at moving targets, but it reduced my pilot's resistant to critical damage. Now, this is useful because I want to get my guns on target as quickly as possible. I want my guns to hit. The 45s are incredibly inaccurate, so doing anything you can possibly do to eliminate that RNG is really good. That's pretty good. And also, I recalibrated it to get those extra bonus characteristics exactly that way because it seemed the most beneficial. If you can get that critical damage when you hit, 15% extra critical damage, massive bonus, and then 5% when firing, accuracy when firing at moving targets. That's really useful because you're always going to be shooting at maneuvering targets, so that's just very useful. However, cruise resistant to injuries, nah, not really that useful. If you're going to go for anything, go for the sight. However, I just completed that marathon event, and I got this Tu-1 radar. So I decided might as well put it on. It's pretty decent. But if you guys don't have this, the sight is perfectly fine. In fact, I might even go back to that if I'm not a huge fan of this. I haven't actually tried out this piece of equipment, but it does seem pretty useful, so I'll keep it on anyway. Essentially, the purpose of the Tu-1 radar is to increase detection range of the enemy and increase the concealment rating of this plane, which is ridiculous. That's the main thing you get. However, the bonus characteristics gave me a 10% accuracy of firing forward firing offensive armament, which is pretty decent, and 5% chance of firing or accuracy when firing at moving targets, which is also really nice. So yeah, I took off the accuracy one, but if you combine this one with the bonus of, what is it, this one? No, it's this one, right? No? Uh, no, okay, well, whatever. 10% accuracy, it's not as good as the 22%, but it's still pretty decent. And 5% accuracy when firing at moving targets. I don't know exactly if this is going to be beneficial, but if you can spot your opponents quicker, I guess that would be beneficial, right? Because your guns have such long range that if you can spot your targets further away, you're able to prepare for your shots faster. And also increasing your concealment gives you that ambush to your opponents, which also could be very useful. So yes, actually that could be very useful, but like I said, this one and the sight, either one seems perfectly fine to me. And with that being said, I think we're just about done with this Tu-1's stat overview. I have a pretty good game that I can give you guys in this plane. I had a phone call partway through, so there will be a short period of time where I am completely useless and doing absolutely nothing. But regardless, it is still a fantastic match. So I figured might as well at least show it off regardless. It is so far the highest scoring game I've had in this plane. I had a couple other good battles, but this was the highest scoring game, and I was even AFK for like a minute and a half. Like, whatever. If I didn't have to take a phone call, what kind of score could I have actually gotten? Beats me? I guess we'll never know. But with that being said, I'll pull up the video and we will get started. And welcome to the replay, everyone. So, this is taking place on this map. Honestly, I don't know the names of these maps. Let's see. Wait, is it right here? It's Road to Rome Outpost. Okay. There you go. That's the name of it. We've got a command center on both sides. We got an airstrip in the center and a military base. The first thing you want to do in this situation, either go for the airfield to give your team a central spawn point to any of the sectors, gives them a very quick route, or go for the command center. In this case, I went for the command center because it was closer. As you see, I'm trying to line up the 45s. You don't always hit, but when you do, you can. I'm not getting the 23s to fire all the time. I'm really trying to get those 45s to hit. That's my main objective. I'm going to use those 23s to finish off low health targets, but I really want to get those 45s to hit, because when the 45s hit, targets are just evaporated, whereas the 23s take a little bit longer. They're by no means bad, but they aren't fantastic. So the main damage that you're going to be doing is with those 45s. So not fighting with the 23s all the time and just focusing on getting those 45s to hit is generally the right way to play this plane. So I'm looking for targets. When at this part, when you're coming into a massive blob, you're looking for low health targets or easy to hit targets. Targets that are moving slow, targets that are moving away from you so that they're going in straight lines. Planes that are making themselves vulnerable are the targets you want to go for. And in this case, the air defense planes were the targets. This guy is right in front of my guns, so I'm gonna pull the trigger and try to hit him. As you can see, I'm not hitting all the time, but when you do hit, they just go bye-bye. They just get eliminated. If you guys saw my Yak 9U replay that I put out many months ago, you will know the playstyle is similar to that. This plane is not maneuverable. The Yak 9U is not maneuverable. This plane isn't fast. The Yak 9U isn't fast. The Yak 9U doesn't have great altitude performance. This plane doesn't have amazing altitude performance. And so it actually just feels like a harder hitting Yak 9U with less maneuverability. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. You can get some pretty nice results in this plane if you've played that plane and have gotten used to the 45s. I'm looking for the target. I'm waiting for him to make himself easy, but we were not quite able to hit. I did not aim that quite right, but it can be kind of difficult to get the shots aimed properly in those quick split-second moments. But when you do hit, things just die. It's so beautiful. We're gonna get to see the tail gunners. So obviously they're not like substantial. They're not crazy they're not crazy tail gunners, but they do get the job done. I forgot to show you guys the crew stats. I just remembered, but essentially I went with Marksman 1 and Marksman 2 because I want those 45s to be more consistently accurate. So that increases accuracy substantially, and that's just very beneficial. For the tail gunner, I went with the burst length and the one that comes after that. That gives you the range of fire. So 5 skills points to get is really doesn't take that long, and it's just very beneficial. After that, I might go with engine thrust, and for the tail gunner, I would like to save up for the reduced amount of damage that you take when your gunner is shooting at targets. Or reduce damage from targets that are shooting at you if your tail gunner is shooting at them. That's the next one. I don't know what it's called, but that's what I'm going to go for next. This plane really does specialize at just destroying anything. Anything, everything, and anything in between. Everything will die. Everything will die when you fly this plane. Bombers die instantly. GA die instantly. Fighters, multi-rolls, heavy fighters, doesn't matter. They'll all just die. The trick is getting those hits, but as you saw, when they hit, you kill planes so fast. So fast, it's unreal. We do get taken out, but that's not too bad. I'm not too worried about that. We will spawn in very shortly, and we had a pretty good run. It is a bot, it's a very annoying bot, but we've had a good run so far. We're already at 13,000 personal points, so not too shabby. And actually, you know what? I think the phone rang just about now. That's what's happening right now. So we're gonna be not really doing anything for a short bit.
The enemy has captured the command center.
Oh, such a shame. Such a shame. This game could have been legendary. But don't worry, I'm not AFK for long. I'll come back in and we will see what we can do. Any other things that I should mention? Well, I think I did hear someone tell me that you could change or you could set your guns to be different keys, so you could fire your 45s and your 23s separately. And in this plane, that would be perfect. You really do want to do that, because when you're in close range, you can hold down the button to fire the 23s and it'll be doing some damage. The 45s, you'll always want to be shooting, but you gotta aim those 45s. You gotta line them up, you gotta wait for opportunities. You can't just hold down the trigger and hope they hit. You really have to make sure that every shot that you fire is going to hit the target, or as close as you can. And I think that's where people make mistakes in this plane. You can't just hold down the trigger and hope they hit. You want to make those 45s hit. So I don't know if it's even possible, and if it is, I don't know how to do it, but it's very useful. And look at this, we're back into the game. So we're going to be able to come back. We are just about to have Supremacy done on us, but Squall Line's coming up. I could kill this guy, but I decided, wait a minute, Squall Line's in 5 seconds. Oh, are you going to get squalled? Oh, wait a minute. We're noobs, huh? Okay. Well, I had to take a phone call, and it's Squall Line. and I'm right next to you. You really shouldn't be mocking us right now. I will kill you, and I will squall you. So, he's gone. Bots think I'm hacking. Oh my. Oh my. What's going on? So, anywho, we have superiority on us. But what can we do? What can we do? Well, I'm firing. I'm at 15,000 personal points. So, if I can flip a sector quickly, we could maybe come back from this. We definitely could have won this if I wasn't AFK, because I wouldn't have let them have supremacy on us. It's unfortunate that it happened, but it is what it is. We're at ace with 16,000 personal points, and we still have supremacy on us. What the frick? Okay, there we go. I flipped a sector. Alright, we need to flip things quickly or we're going to lose. They have 5 planes left. So close to being able to win this. But because I had the phone call, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to do it. We're going to come up to the 109F and open fire. That was a good hit. I think he's on fire, and boom, he's dead. Cosmic Double Metal is in the bag for 5 kills, enemy kills after Squall Line. We got flames in the sky. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. And they are down to 4 planes, something like that. Yep, 4 planes. We have 5 planes. If the timer wasn't a problem, I think we could win this. I could derp everything and we could win this. That's one thing I really want changed about this game. I want superiority to be basically non-existent. I don't want supremacy to take away the fact that you could have really good scoring games. You can still get the points, but you shouldn't have increased points for supremacy, because it shortens the battle. So if you're on the winning team, you have crappy ×2s, and if you're on the losing team, well, it just sucks. I really don't like supremacy. I really like those situations where you can win by killing all planes. Yeah. I have not yet had a battle, really, where we're down like 1 plane to 4 planes, and I win it for the team. I defeat the last 4 planes and I win. I just don't get that very often because the points are too small. Either change supremacy or increase the points required to win, because I really want Squall Line to mean something. I don't win many games from Squall Line. It's more of just points, and that really disheartens me. Like, I really want to have those nail biter moments where you carry the team on your back and you win it for your team at the very end. Like, the feeling you would get from that is just incredible. But anyway, beside the point, we got 21,200 points, not too shabby. We made 140 something thousand credits. That's pretty good because this is a premium aircraft, so you will get premium credits. Not as much as a tier 8, but heck, if you're playing World of Tanks, that's tier 8 premium amounts of credits. So, I mean, it's not bad. If you need to make money, this isn't a bad plane to make money with. It's got a very high skill cap, so I'm not sure how many people would actually enjoy it. I would say if you don't like the Yak 9U, you may not want to pick this plane up. Or if you're not a fan of heavy fighters in general, or derpy guns, you might not want to pick this up. If you are able to put the time and effort in required to master this plane, it is a real gem, and you can get 15,000 personal points a game. Like, there were very few games where I didn't get 15,000 personal points in this plane. It's just a beautiful plane. Absolutely amazing. It's very, very fun. So with that being said, do I recommend it? Yes, I do recommend it if you're willing to put the time in. And I do hope to make more videos in the future. I will try to make more consistently, and yeah. Anyway, I hope you guys all enjoyed. If you guys have suggestions for how to make these videos better, or actually, I would like to do things other than reviews at some point and do more of like strategies, a strategy guide, or tips and tricks to certain things. So if you guys want to see that, let me know in the comments down below. I will be looking for suggestions. And with that being said, I really hope you guys enjoyed. Take care, and I'll catch you next time.